The flight attendant's hand hovered over the intercom as security was summoned to remove a teenage girl from seat 1A. Passengers watched in silence as she was threatened, humiliated, and labeled a disturbance for refusing to give up her window seat. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply unlocked her phone and made one quiet call. What the crew didn't know was that the girl they were about to drag off the plane was protected by the very system they ignored, and the man on the other end of that call controlled their careers. In minutes, authority would reverse reputations, would collapse, and the entire flight would be grounded. Scene JFK International Airport. The AeroVantage Royal Lounge. Time, 8:30 a.m. The automatic glass doors of the AeroVantage Royal Lounge hissed open, admitting a gust of conditioned air and the scent of expensive espresso. Maya Sterling adjusted the strap of her worn-out canvas backpack. At 19, Maya didn't look like the typical clientele of the Royal Lounge. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She wore a vintage university hoodie that was slightly too big, and her sneakers had seen better days. She wasn't trying to make a statement. She just wanted to be comfortable for the 6-hour flight to London. She walked toward the marble reception desk, clutching her boarding pass. The woman behind the desk, whose name tag read Patricia, didn't look up immediately. She was busy typing her manicured nails, clicking rhythmically against the keyboard. When she finally raised her eyes, her smile faltered. It didn't disappear, but it froze into something polite, yet questioning. "Deliveries are at the back entrance, miss," Patricia said, her voice dropping an octave, assuming Maya was a courier. Maya blinked, pulling one side of her headphones away from her ear. "I'm sorry. The service entrance for the kitchen staff. It's down the hall to the left." Maya felt that familiar prickle of heat on the back of her neck. It wasn't the first time this had happened, and unfortunately, she knew it wouldn't be the last. She placed her phone and her boarding pass on the marble counter. "I'm not staff," Maya said, her voice soft but steady. "I'm on flight AV80 to Heathrow." Patricia raised an eyebrow, picking up the boarding pass with 2 fingers as if it were contaminated. She scanned it, expecting the red light of a rejection or an economy ticket scanned at the wrong desk. Beep. A crisp, bright green light flashed on her monitor. Passenger Sterling Mere Status Royal Key Owner Suite. Patricia's eyes widened. She choked slightly on her own breath. The Royal Key status wasn't something you bought. It was invitation only, usually reserved for heads of state A-list celebrities or the board of directors. I apologize, Ms. Sterling." Patricia stammered, her face flushing a deep crimson. "The system usually alerts us." "Please come in. Can I get you a sparkling water champagne? Water is fine." Clears throat, Maya said. Taking her pass back, she didn't make a scene. She just wanted to sit down and draw in her sketchbook. She found a secluded corner seat by the floor, 2 sailing windows overlooking the tarmac. She loved watching the planes. It was the engineering that fascinated her, the sheer miracle of heavy metal taking flight. But her peace was short-lived. 10 minutes later, the tranquility of the lounge was shattered by a voice that sounded like dragging a metal chair across a concrete floor. "This is absolutely ridiculous. Do you know who my husband is?" Maya looked up. Standing at the reception desk was a woman who looked like she was vibrating with tension. She was dressed in a white Chanel suit that looked brand new, holding a Birkin bag that she was wielding like a weapon. This was Eleanor Vance. Eleanor was 45, heavily made up, and currently berating Patricia. "I specifically requested the window seat in row 1. My assistant confirmed it." Eleanor shrieked. "Mrs. Vance, I understand." Patricia said, her voice trembling. "But as I explained, seat 1A was booked months in advance. We have you in 1B. It's an aisle seat right next to it with the same service level." "I don't do aisles," Eleanor snapped. "I get claustrophobic. I need the window. Who is in 1A, move them." "I can't do that, ma'am. The passenger is already checked in." Eleanor turned, scanning the lounge with eyes that looked like predatory searchlights. Her gaze swept over the businessmen in suits, the elderly couple drinking tea, and then landed on Maya in the corner. Maya with her hoodie and backpack. Elena Nena let out a short, derisive huff. She turned back to Patricia. "Is the flight full? First class is fully booked, Mrs. Vance." Eleanor narrowed her eyes. She didn't say anything else to Patricia. She adjusted her blazer, smoothed her hair, and marched toward the buffet, grabbing a mimosa. But Maya felt the weight of that stare. It was a look of calculation. Elena Vance had decided that whatever problem she had, she was going to fix it herself, and she had just identified the weakest link in the room. Maya put her headphones back on, turning the volume up. She pulled out her phone and sent a quick text to Dad. "Lounge is nice. Receptionist thought I was kitchen staff. LOL. About to board soon. Love you." The reply came 3 dots later. "Tell them to check the file if they bother you, or call me. Fly safe, bug. Love you." Maya smiled. She hoped she wouldn't have to make that call. She hated using her father's name. She wanted to be Maya the artist, not Maya the AIs. But as she watched Elena Vance glaring at her from across the room, she had a sinking feeling that this flight was going to be long. Scene gate, bin the jet bridge time. Zoto 925 Mim. The boarding process for first class was usually seamless. Maya waited until the final call for Group 1, preferring to minimize the time spent standing in line. When she walked down the jet bridge, the cool air of the tunnel hit her. At the aircraft door, the lead flight attendant was greeting passengers. Her name tag read, Brenda. Brenda looked exhausted. She had the tight-forced smile of someone who had been flying for 20 years and had lost her patience about 15 years ago. Boarding pass, Brenda said, not making eye contact. Maya held out her phone. Brenda scanned it. 1A left side. Brenda grunted, waving her through. Maya stepped into the cabin. The AirVantage first-class cabin was stunning. It wasn't just seats. They were individual suites with sliding privacy doors. Seat 1A was the prime spot, the utmost privacy, the best view. Maya tossed her backpack into the overhead bin, took off her hoodie to reveal a simple white t-shirt, and settled into the plush leather seat. She was just getting her sketchbook out when the atmosphere in the cabin shifted. Elena Vance had arrived. She stormed onto the plane, bringing a cloud of heavy floral perfume with her. She stopped abruptly at row 1, staring at the numbers. She looked at 1B, the aisle seat. Then she looked at 1A, where Maya was sitting. The privacy door to 1A was still open. Eleanor stood right at the threshold, blocking the aisle. "Excuse me," Eleanor said loudly. Maya looked up. "Yes, you're in my seat." Maya checked her boarding pass again just to be sure. "I don't think so. This is 1A. I'm assigned 1A. Eleanor laughed, a dry, humorless sound. She turned around, snapping her fingers at Brenda, who was helping another passenger with a coat. "Stewardies, we have a situation here." Brenda hurried over. She saw Eleanor white suit, expensive jewelry, demanding attitude, and her posture immediately straightened into subservience. Brenda knew how to play the game. Clears throat. Rich passengers meant better tips, or at least fewer complaints to corporate. Then Brenda looked at Maya. Young black t-shirt sneakers. Brenda's bias kicked in instantly. She didn't see a paying customer. She saw a glitch in the matrix. Maybe an employee flying non-revenue standby who had gotten lucky, or an upgrade mistake. "What seems to be the problem?" Miss Vance, Brenda asked, her voice dripping with honey. "This child," Eleanor gestured at Mia with a limp wrist, "is in my seat. I specifically requested the window. I am a gold medallion member with this airline. I have flown AirVantage for 10 years. There has clearly been a mix-up." Brenda turned to Ma. The honey in her voice evaporated, replaced by the tone one uses on a misbehaving toddler. "Miss, can I see your boarding pass, please?" Maya held up her phone again. "It's 1A. I booked it." Brenda squinted at the phone screen. It clearly said 1A. But Brenda was tired, and Elena Vance was the kind of woman who could get a flight attendant fired with a single email. In Brenda's mind, the path of least resistance was to move the teenager. "There must be a system error," Brenda lied smoothly. She didn't check the manifest tablet she was holding. She just went with her gut prejudice. Sometimes the system double books. Since Miss Vance is a medallion member, "I have a ticket," Maya said, her heart starting to beat faster. I paid for this seat. Look. Eleanor interrupted, leaning over the seat, invading Maya's personal space. I don't know how you got up here. Maybe you used your boyfriend's miles. Or maybe it's a diversity upgrade. I don't care. But I have a migraine coming on, and I need the window. So be a good girl and move. The insult stung. Diversity upgrade. Maya sat up straighter. I'm not moving. This is my assigned seat. The cabin had gone quiet. Other passengers were watching. A man in 2A, a young tech entrepreneur type named Liam, took off his headphones, watching the scene with concern. Brenda's face hardened. She felt her authority being challenged by a teenager. Miss, I need you to grab your things. We can find you a seat in economy comfort. It's a full flight, but I'm sure we can squeeze you in the back. Economy? Maya asked, incredulous. I have a first-class ticket. Why would I move to economy because you are causing a disturbance? Brenda said, her voice raising so the rest of the cabin could hear. And if you don't cooperate, I will have to classify you as an unruly passenger. Do you know what that means? It means I can have you escorted off the plane by federal marshals. It was a bluff, but a terrifying one. Brenda was banking on Maya's fear. She expected the girl to crumble, grab her bag, and retreat to the back of the plane to avoid a scene. But Maya didn't crumble. She went cold. She looked at Brenda's name tag. Then she looked at Elena. You're threatening to kick me off the flight because she wants my window, Maya asked calmly. I'm asking you to respect the paying customers. Brenda snapped. I am a paying customer. Listen, you little brat, Eleanor hissed. I know people. My husband plays golf with the vice president of operations for this airline. If you don't get out of this seat in 10 seconds, I will make sure you are banned from flying on any airline ever. Maya took a deep breath. She reached for her phone. Clear's throat. Put the phone away, Brenda commanded. Flight mode now. We aren't moving yet, Maya said, and I'm making a call. If you make a call, I'm calling the captain. Brenda warned, reaching for the interphone on the wall. Go ahead, Maya said, unlocking her screen. Call the captain. Actually have the captain come here. I think he needs to see this. Brenda scoffed. The captain is busy conducting pre-flight checks. He doesn't have time for a teenager with an attitude problem. Brenda grabbed the radio handset. Captain, this is Brenda in the forward cabin. We have a situation with a disruptive passenger in 1A who is refusing crew instructions. I might need security at the gate. The static crackled. A deep male voice responded. Copy that, Brenda. Is it physical, number, verbal non-compliance, refusing to vacate a duplicate seat assignment? I'm coming out, the captain said. Maya watched them. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She opened her contacts, scrolled past Mom, past Clear's throat Liam, and clicked on the contact simply saved as the big boss. She hit the call button. Elena smirked, settling into seat 1B, but leaving her bag on 1A's armrest. Calling your mommy. Tell her to pick you up. You're not going to London today, sweetheart. Maya held the phone to her ear. It rang once, twice. Hello. A deep, commanding voice answered. It wasn't the captain. It was a voice that echoed in boardrooms across the globe. Hi, Dad. Maya said, her voice shaking slightly now that the adrenaline was peaking. I'm on flight AT-80. The flight attendant is calling security to drag me off the plane. There was a silence on the other end of the line. A silence so heavy, it felt like the air pressure in the cabin dropped. Who is trying to drag you off? Marcus Sterling asked. His voice was terrifyingly calm. The head flight attendant, Brenda. She wants to give my seat to a lady named Ms. Vance. Because Ms. Vance doesn't like aisle seats. Put me on speaker, Marcus said. Dad, they are threatening to ban me. Clear's throat. Maya. Marcus interrupted. Put me on speaker. Maya pulled the phone away from her ear and pressed the speaker button just as Captain Anderson stepped out of the cockpit. He was a tall man with silver hair, looking annoyed at the delay. What is going on here? Captain Anderson asked, looking between Brenda, Eleanor, and Ma. Captain, she refuses to move. Brenda said, pointing an accusatory finger at Mia. She's disrupting the boarding process. Mia held up the phone. The volume was maxed out. "This is Marcus Sterling." The voice boomed from the tiny speaker clear. "Who is the captain of this vessel?" Captain Anderson froze. He knew that voice. Every pilot in the company knew that voice. It was the voice from the annual holiday videos. It was the voice that signed the union contracts. Anderson's face went pale. He looked at the phone, then at Mia, then at the royal key code on the manifest tablet Brenda had left on the counter. Mr. Sterling," Captain Anderson stammered, stepping forward. Captain Marcus's voice was ice cold. "Why is my daughter being threatened with federal marshals on my airplane?" The silence that followed was absolute. Brenda's jaw dropped so low it nearly hit the floor. Ella Lanena Vance stopped smirking, her eyes darting around the cabin as the realization hit her like a physical slap. The drama was just beginning. Scene first-class cabin flight, AV880. Time 0922 mm. The silence in the first-ass cabin was thick enough to choke on. The only sound was the low hum of the Clearthroat aircraft's auxiliary power unit and the faint static from Mia's smartphone, which she held out like a judge delivering a verdict. Captain Anderson stared at the device as if it were a live grenade. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing visibly. He recognized the cadence, the timbre, and the absolute authority in that voice. He had shaken Marcus Sterling's hand 3 years ago at the company gala. He knew that voice better than he knew his own wife's. "Mr. Sterling," Captain Anderson said, his voice cracking slightly. He cleared his throat and tried again, standing at attention. "Sir, this is Captain James Anderson. I had no idea. We weren't aware that Mia was on board." "That is the problem, James." Marcus's voice cut through the air, amplified by the speaker. It wasn't loud, but it was heavy. "My daughter travels as a private citizen because she values her privacy. But she travels with a royal key status. That status is flagged on every manifest, every terminal, and every iPad your crew holds. Are you telling me your crew cannot read Brenda, the lead flight attendant, was trembling? Her hands, which had been resting on her hips in a power stance just moments ago, were now clutching her uniform skirt. She looked at the manifest tablet she had abandoned on the beverage counter. She hadn't even opened the passenger details tab. She had just seen a teenager in a hoodie and made an assumption. "Sir," Brenda squeaked. She stepped toward the phone, desperate to salvage the situation. "Mr. Sterling, sir. I'm Brenda the purser. There has been a terrible misunderstanding. I was just trying to facilitate a request from a valued medallion member." "I didn't know." "You didn't know," Marcus interrupted. "You threatened to have federal marshals drag my 19-year-old daughter off a plane she has a valid ticket for. You called her a glitch. You embarrassed her. Is that a Raro Vantage policy, Brenda? To humiliate paying customers based on how they dress? No, sir. Absolutely not." Brenda was crying now, mascara beginning to pull in the corners of her eyes. Eleanor Vance, however, was not reading the room. To Eleanor, Marcus Sterling was just a voice on a phone. She didn't know the corporate structure of the airline. She just knew she was rich, her husband was powerful, and she was currently being ignored. "Excuse me?" Ella Lanena shouted over the phone, leaning in toward Mia's hand. "I don't care who is on the phone. This is ridiculous. I am Mrs. Eleanor Vance. My husband is Robert Vance of Vance Logistics. We ship millions of dollars of cargo with this airline. I demand you tell your daughter to move, or I will pull every contract my husband has." Maya looked up at Ella Lanena with a mix of pity and disbelief. She really doesn't get it, Maya thought. There was a pause on the line. A long, dangerous pause. Robert Vance, Marcus said, slowly tasting the name. Vance Logistics, mid-sized shipping firm based in Chicago, dealing mostly in automotive parts. Ella Lanena blinked. "Yes, exactly." "So you know who we are." "I do," Marcus said. "And you should know who I am. I am the CEO of Sterling Aviation Group. We own a Raro Vantage. We also own the air freight network your husband relies on to move his product. And as of this moment, Mrs. Vance, I am personally cancelling your husband's corporate account. He can ship his automotive parts by boat. It might take a few weeks longer." Eleanor's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked like a fish pulled out of water. The colour drained from her face so fast she looked grey. You can't," she whispered. "I just did," Marcus said. "Now, James." "Yes, Mr. Sterling." The captain responded instantly. "I want that plane grounded. Do not leave the gate. I am currently in the Sterling hangar across the tarmac. I am coming over. I want the flight crew and the passenger who harassed my daughter waiting for me at the door. Do not let that plane move 1 inch." "Understood, sir?" Captain Anderson said, holding the aircraft, and tell Maya to put her headphones back on. "I'll be there in 5 minutes." The line went dead. Maya calmly locked her phone, placed it on the armrest, and picked up her noise-cancelling headphones. She looked at Brenda, who was hyperventilating, and Eleanor, who was clutching her chest. "He says 5 minutes," Maya said softly. She slid her headphones on, effectively muting the world again. Scene: the tarmac aircraft door. Time: Wo 9 Tor 30 Mers. The atmosphere in the plane had shifted from awkwardness to terror. The other passengers in first class were no longer annoyed by the delay. They were riveted. Liam, the tech guy in 2A, was texting furiously on his phone. The elderly couple in 3B was peering over the seats. Brenda had retreated to the galley. She was pacing back and forth, wiping her face with a napkin. I didn't know she kept muttering to the junior flight attendant, a young man named Kevin, who looked like he wanted to jump out the emergency exit. She didn't look like a Sterling. "It doesn't matter what she looked like. Brenda," Kevin whispered, distancing himself from the blast zone. "You didn't check the manifest." Captain Anderson was in the cockpit, making an announcement to the whole plane. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a slight delay due to an administrative issue. We expect a resolution shortly. Please remain seated." Back in the cabin, Elena Vance had slumped into seat 1B. She had her phone out and was frantically dialing her husband. Bob, pick up." She hissed into the phone. Something happened. I need you to fix it." "No, don't yell at me. He said he's cancelling the contracts." Bob. She pulled the phone away. He had hung up on her. Outside the window, a commotion drew the attention of the passengers on the left side of the aircraft. A convoy of 3 black SUVs, lights flashing, but sirens silent, tore across the tarmac. They weren't police vehicles. They were private security. They bore the Silver S logo of Sterling Aviation. They screeched to a halt right next to the jet bridge stairs. The door to the lead SUV flew open. Marcus Sterling stepped out. He was a tall man, imposing in a bespoke navy suit. He didn't look like a man in a rage. He looked like a natural disaster contained in human form. He walked with a stride that ate up the ground, flanked by 2 security officers and a woman with an iPad, his VP of Customer Experience. They bypassed the terminal gate entirely, coming up the side stairs of the jet bridge, a breach of protocol that only the owner of the airline could authorize. A moment later, the aircraft door opened. Captain Anderson was waiting there. "Mr. Sterling." Marcus didn't stop to shake hands. He walked straight onto the plane, ducking his head slightly under the doorframe. Clear's throat. His presence filled the cabin. He had an aura of command that sucked the oxygen out of the room. He didn't look at Brenda. He didn't look at Elena. He walked straight to seat 1A. Maya pushed her headphones down around her neck. She looked up at her dad. She looked small in the big leather seat, and for the first time, the toughness in her eyes softened. "You okay, Bug?" Marcus asked, his voice gentle, contrasting sharply with his entrance. "I'm fine, Dad," Maya said. "Just wanted to draw." "I know." Marcus reached out and squeezed her shoulder. Then he stood up and turned around. The gentleness vanished. His face hardened into stone. He looked at Brenda, who was cowering by the cockpit door. "You," Marcus said. It wasn't a question. "Mr. Sterling, Brenda began to sob. "I have worked for AeroVantage for 22 years. I have a perfect record." "You had a perfect record," Marcus corrected. "Today you profiled a passenger. You ignored safety protocols regarding the manifest. And you used your authority to bully a young woman because you wanted to please someone with a gold card. Give me your badge, sir. Your crew badge now. With shaking hands, Brenda unclipped her ID from her lapel. She handed it to him. You are relieved of duty immediately, Marcus said, handing the badge to his VP. You will deplane now. An HR representative will meet you at the gate to discuss the terms of your termination and the loss of your pension benefits. My pension? Brenda gasped. Gross misconduct usually voids that, Marcus said coldly. Get off my plane. Brenda let out a sob, grabbed her purse from the galley, and ran up the jet bridge, face buried in her hands. Marcus then turned his eyes to Eleanor Vance. Eleanor was trying to make herself small in seat 1B, clutching her Birkin bag. She looked up at him, trying to summon some of her earlier arrogance, but failing miserably. Mr. Sterling, Eleanor began, her voice shrill. Let's be reasonable. I was stressed. I have a condition. I didn't know she was your daughter. Mrs. Vance, Marcus said, stepping into her personal space. If she wasn't my daughter, if she was just a scholarship student or a young artist or a tired nurse, would it have been okay to treat her like garbage? Eleanor stammered. I paid for a window seat. You paid for transportation, Marcus said. You didn't pay for the right to abuse my guests. You threatened my daughter. You told her she didn't belong here. He gestured to the two security officers standing by the door. Escort Mrs. Vance off the aircraft. You can't do this, Eleanor shrieked as the security guards approached. I have rights. I'm a citizen. I'm not moving. You are trespassing on private property, Marcus said calmly. And you are now banned for life from Aero Vantage and all its partner airlines. If you don't walk off, the Port Authority police are waiting at the top of the jet bridge to arrest you for interfering with a flight crew. One of the guards placed a hand on Eleanor's elbow. She slapped it away. Don't touch me. This is assault. Eleanor screamed, standing up. She looked at the other passengers. Help me. He's crazy. He's a tyrant. Liam in 2A looked up from his phone and said, Lady, you are awful. Just go. Defeated, humiliated, and red-faced, Eleanor grabbed her things. She tried to stomp past Marcus with dignity, but she tripped on the strap of her own bag, stumbling into the aisle. She scrambled up, glaring at Maya one last time. You ruined everything. Eleanor spat at the girl. Maya didn't even blink. You did this to yourself. As Eleanor was marched off the plane, Marcus turned to the rest of the cabin. He adjusted his cufflinks. Ladies and gentlemen, he projected his voice. I apologize for the delay and the disturbance. We will be bringing a new flight crew on board shortly. To compensate you for this inconvenience, every passenger on this flight will receive a full refund of their ticket price and a $2,000 voucher for future travel. Thank you for choosing Aero Vantage. The cabin erupted in applause. Marcus turned back to Maya. I have to go deal with the fallout. The new crew will be here in 10 minutes. The captain knows to take care of you. Call me when you land. I will, Maya said. Thanks, Dad. Anytime, Bug. Marcus turned and walked off the plane. Captain Anderson wiped sweat from his forehead. The crisis was over, but the story was just beginning. Someone had recorded the whole thing, and by the time Flight 880 took off, the video titled Karen vs. CEO was already trending on Twitter. But the karma for Elena Vance was about to get much, much worse than just being kicked off a plane. Scene. Clears throat. The internet. The Vance residence. Long Island. Time. Clears throat. 11:45 a.m. Same day. While Maya Sterling was peacefully sketching above the clouds, sipping a fresh, sparkling water brought by a terrified new flight crew. The world below was catching fire. Liam, the tech entrepreneur in seat 2A, hadn't just watched the altercation. He had filmed it in 4K resolution. He posted the video to TikTok and Twitter before the plane even pushed back from the gate. He didn't add a long caption. He, clears throat, didn't need to. He just wrote, Lady tries to kick a teenager out of first class because she wants the window. Turns out the teen is the CEO's daughter. Wait for the end. Karma, Aero, Vantage, Fafo. By the time Eleanor Vance was sitting in the back of an Uber fuming and composing a mental lawsuit against the airline, the video had 1.2 million views. By the time her car pulled into the driveway of her sprawling Long Island estate, it had hit 15 million. Eleanor stormed into her house, slamming the heavy oak door. She felt victimized. In her mind, she was the one who had been wronged. She kicked off her heels and marched to the kitchen to pour herself a stiff drink. She grabbed her phone, intending to call her lawyer, a man named Richard, who usually handled her parking tickets and zoning disputes. But her phone was already buzzing. It wasn't Richard. It was a notification from Instagram. Then another, then 50, then a continuous vibration that made the phone feel like a live wire. She unlocked the screen. Her notifications were a blur of red. She clicked on her latest photo, a picture of her and Robert at a charity gala. The comment section, usually filled with heart emojis from her country club friends, was now a war zone. Is this the lady from the plane imagined being this entitled? You messed with the wrong one, lady. Cart Team Maya. I hope you like flying cargo because you're done. Eleanor frowned, confused. What are they talking about? She whispered. She opened Twitter. The trending tab was dominated by 3 things. 1 first-class Karen, 2 Marcus Sterling, 3 Eleanor Vance. Her heart stopped. She clicked the first hashtag. There she was. The video was everywhere. It showed her looming over Mia. It captured every sneering word about diversity upgrades. It captured her screeching at Brenda. And most damning of all, it captured the moment Marcus Sterling walked on board and dismantled her ego with surgical precision. Clear's throat. The internet sleuths had done their work fast. Within an hour, they had found her name, her husband's business, her address, and even her high school yearbook photo. The phone rang in her hand. It was her best friend, Cynthia. Eleanor picked up, desperate for an ally. Cynthia, you won't believe what happened to me. This airline, Eleanor, shut up. Cynthia's voice was sharp, panicked. Have you seen the news? What news? You're on TMZ. You're on the Daily Mail. Eleanor, you're everywhere. And listen to me. Don't come to the luncheon tomorrow. Eleanor froze. The charity luncheon was the highlight of the social season. Eleanor was the chairwoman. What do you mean I organised it? The board just met, Cynthia, said, her voice dropping to a whisper. They voted to remove you as chair effectively immediately. They don't want the bad press. The video, the things you said. It looks really bad. People are calling you a racist. The sponsors are pulling out. I am not a racist, Eleanor screamed, gripping the marble countertop. I just wanted my seat. It doesn't matter what you wanted. You're toxic right now. Do not come tomorrow. Security has been instructed to turn you away. Click. Cynthia hung up. Eleanor stared at the phone. She had been the queen bee of her social circle for 15 years. In less than 3 hours, she had been excommunicated. But the social isolation was just the appetizer. The main course of karma was being served at her husband's office. Scene: Vance Logistics Headquarters, New Jersey. Time: 0:15 p.m. Robert Vance was having a normal Tuesday until he wasn't. He was sitting in his corner office reviewing the quarterly projections for his shipping company. Vance Logistics was a solid business, not a Fortune 500 giant, but profitable enough to afford the Long Island house, the country club memberships, and Eleanor's spending habits. The backbone of their business was just-in-time delivery for automotive parts, a model that relied entirely on air freight speed, and 80% of their air freight moved through Sterling Cargo, a subsidiary of the Sterling Aviation Group. Robert's office door flew open. He looked up, annoyed. Knock. Damn it. It was his vice president of operations, Greg. Greg looked like he was about to vomit. He was holding a stack of papers that was still warm from the printer. Bob, we have a problem, Greg said. A massive problem. What is it? A delay in Chicago? No. Greg slapped the papers on the desk. It's a termination notice from Sterling Aviation. Robert laughed, confusing the panic for a prank. Don't be stupid, Greg. We have a 5-year contract. We're in year 2. They can't just terminate us. Read the clause, Bob. Clause 14B, reputational damage and conduct clause. They are invoking it immediately. They've locked us out of the booking system. As of 10 minutes ago, our login credentials for the global freight network are invalid. Robert picked up the letter. It was signed by the General Counsel of Sterling Group. It was brief, brutal, and legally watertight. Effective immediately, all accounts associated with Vance Logistics are suspended. All pending cargo currently in Sterling hangars will be held until alternative transport is arranged by the client. We will no longer do business with entities associated with the Vance family. What the hell is this? Robert roared, standing up. Get Marcus Sterling on the phone. I play golf with his VP. I tried, Greg said, wiping sweat from his forehead. I called everyone. No one is picking up. And, Bob, it's not just Sterling. What do you mean? I just got an email from DHL and FedEx's corporate division. They're reviewing our credit lines. We're being flagged as a high-risk partner. It's like a domino effect. Robert stared at him. Why? What triggered this? Greg pulled out his iPad. He hesitated. You haven't checked Twitter today, have you? I don't have time for social media. Greg placed the iPad on the desk and pressed play. Robert watched. He watched his wife Eleanor shrieking at a teenager. He watched her invoke his name. My husband is Robert Vance of Vance Logistics. Robert watched his wife threaten the CEO of the biggest aviation conglomerate in the world. He watched Marcus Sterling calmly dismantle his entire life's work in 2 sentences. I am personally cancelling your husband's corporate account. Robert felt the blood drain from his face. His knees gave out and he sat back down heavily in his leather chair. She said my name, Robert whispered. She screamed the company name on camera while abusing a black teenager. It's trending, Bob Gregg said quietly. Our Google reviews are tanking. We've gone from 4.5 stars to 1 star in an hour. People are review bombing us. Major clients are already calling. Ford just put our contract on hold pending an investigation into our company values. Robert felt a tightness in his chest. This wasn't just a bad day. This was extinction. His business relied on reputation and speed. Eleanor had destroyed his reputation, and Marcus Sterling had taken away his speed. Without Sterling Cargo, Robert couldn't move parts fast enough. If he couldn't move parts, he breached his contracts with the auto manufacturers. If he breached those contracts, he would be sued for millions in damages. Vance Logistics was dead. It would take weeks to file for bankruptcy, but the company was effectively a corpse walking. Robert stared at the frozen image of Eleanor's angry face on the iPad screen, the woman he had financed for 20 years, the woman whose messes he had always cleaned up. He didn't feel love. He didn't feel a desire to protect her. He felt a pure, white-hot rage. He grabbed his car keys. Handle the calls. Greg Roberts said, his voice terrifyingly calm. Tell the clients. Tell them whatever you want. I'm going home. Bob, where are you going? I'm going to have a talk with my wife. Scene, the Vance Estate, Long Island. Time 02:45. Clears throat, PM. Same day. The silence in the Vance mansion was usually peaceful, a sign of exclusivity and distance from the noisy commoners. Today, however, the silence felt heavy, like the air before a tornado touches down. Eleanor was in the sunroom pacing. She had turned off her phone because the Clears throat notifications were giving her a migraine. She had poured herself a 3rd glass of Chardonnay, trying to numb the gnawing anxiety in her stomach. She kept telling herself she could fix this. She would write an apology letter. She would make a donation to some urban youth charity. Rich people got out of trouble all the time. That was the point of being rich. She heard the front door open. It didn't close with a click. It slammed with a force that rattled the crystal chandelier in the foyer. Robert, she called out, her voice trembling slightly. Bob, honey, is that you? You're home early. She walked into the hallway. Robert stood there. He hadn't taken off his coat. He hadn't put down his briefcase. He was staring at her with eyes that looked like 2 burnt holes in a sheet. Bob, I'm so glad you're home. Elena started rushing toward him. You have to help me. That airline. That horrible man. He threatened me. We need to sue them. We need to call the lawyers. And shut up, Robert said. It wasn't a shout. It was a flat, dead command. Elena stopped in her tracks. What I said? Shut up, Elena. Don't speak. Just listen. Robert walked past her into the living room and threw his briefcase onto the sofa. It popped open, spilling the termination letters and the red ink financial reports onto the silk cushions. Do you know what these are? Robert asked, pointing at the papers. Work stuff, Bob. I don't care about work right now. I am in crisis. This is your crisis, Elena. Robert suddenly roared, his face turning a dangerous shade of purple. This is the death certificate of Vance Logistics. Because of you, Eleanor recoiled. Don't yell at me. I just had an argument on a plane. You didn't just have an argument. Robert stepped closer, backing her against the wall. You dropped me. You dropped the company. You looked into a camera and tied my life's work to your bigotry. And then you threatened Marcus Sterling. I didn't know who he was. It doesn't matter. You threatened the man who owns the planes we use to ship our product. Robert ran a hand through his hair, laughing hysterically. Do you know what happened at 100 p.m. today? Elena Sterling Aviation cut us off. FedEx flagged us. Ford cancelled our contract. In 4 hours, I went from a CEO to a man with 200 employees I can't pay and a warehouse full of parts I can't move. We have savings, Eleanor stammered. We have the accounts. We are being sued, Robert corrected her, by Ford by our partners for breach of contract. The lawyers told me 20 minutes ago that by the time the dust settles, we will be lucky if we aren't in debt for $10 million. The house is gone, Elena. The cars are gone. The club membership is gone. Eleanor stared at him, unable to comprehend a world where she wasn't wealthy. You're exaggerating. You always fix things. I can't fix this, Robert said coldly. But I can stop the bleeding. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. For a second, Eleanor thought he had bought her a gift to make up for the fighting. Hope flared in her chest. Then he pulled out his wedding ring. He dropped it into the box, snapped it shut, and tossed it onto the table next to the divorce papers he had printed at the office. I'm leaving you, Elena. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. What, Bob number? We've been married for 22 years. You can't leave me over a bad flight. I can, Robert, Clear's throat said. My lawyer says my only chance of salvaging any of my reputation and maybe saving a piece of the company is to publicly distance myself from you immediately. I have to issue a statement condemning your actions and announcing our separation. It's the only way the shareholders won't eat me alive. You're choosing money over me, Eleanor whispered, tears finally spilling over. Real tears this time. No, Robert said, walking to the door. I'm choosing survival. You did this, Eleanor. You wanted to be important. You wanted everyone to know who you were. Well, congratulations. Now the whole world knows, and I don't want to be anywhere near you when the rest of the karma hits. He opened the door. My assistant will be by tomorrow to collect my things. The house will be listed for sale on Monday. Good luck, Elena. The door closed. Elena Vance was left alone in the silent, empty mansion. The echo of the slam marking the end of her life as she knew it. Scene. A montage of fates. 1. The Greyhound bus station. Newark, NJ. Status denied. Eleanor stood in line, clutching a generic duffel bag. The Chanel suit was gone. Sold to a consignment shop to pay for a lawyer who ended up quitting. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater. She looked older. The Botox had worn off and the stress lines were deep. She was trying to get to her sister's house in Ohio. Her sister was the only one who would take her in after the bankruptcy and the divorce. Robert had been ruthless. The prenup held up. Eleanor got almost nothing. She reached the counter. 1 ticket to Cleveland, please. The agent behind the glass looked at her ID. He paused. He looked at her face, then back at the ID. He recognized her. Everyone still recognized her. The meme first class Karen was still, Clear's throat, circulating. I'm sorry, the agent said, his voice flat. The bus is full. I can see empty seats on the screen behind you. Eleanor pleaded. Please, I just want to go home. System says it's full. the agent said, looking her dead in the eye. He didn't smile. He just closed his window and put up the next window. Please sign. Elena grabbed her bag head down and walked away. She knew it wasn't full, but this was her life now. 1,000 tiny doors closing in her face, every single day. 2. A small apartment in Queens. Status. Regret. Brenda sat at her kitchen table staring at a stack of bills. At 52, she should have been coasting toward retirement with a full pension and flight benefits for life. Instead, she was working the night shift at a 24-hour diner. The pay was minimum wage. The customers were rude. Her feet hurt, Clear's throat, constantly. Sterling Aviation had not only fired her, they had blacklisted her. No reputable airline would hire a purser who had been terminated for racial profiling and harassment. She had tried Delta United, even the budget carriers. The answer was always the same. We've reviewed your file and we are unable to offer you a position. She scrolled through her phone and saw a news article about Aero Vantage's new zero-tolerance training program. It was being hailed as the gold standard in the industry. She turned off her phone. She had traded a 20-year career for 5 minutes of sucking up to a socialite who didn't even care about her. 3. The Airvantage First Class Lounge, London Heathrow. Status ascending. Maya Sterling sat in her favourite corner seat by the window. She was sketching again, but this time the sketchbook wasn't just for her. She was finishing a design for her new collaboration. After the incident went viral, Maya hadn't done interviews. She hadn't gone on talk shows to bash Elena. She had stayed quiet, but people had found her art page. Her follower count had exploded from 300 to 3 million overnight. A major fashion brand had reached out. They wanted to collaborate on a line of travel wear hoodies and comfortable clothes that were stylish and high-end. The tagline was, "Travel with dignity, arrive in style." Her phone buzzed. It was a text from her dad. Dad saw the quarterly reports. Passenger satisfaction is up 15% since we implemented the new training. You changed the culture, Bug. Proud of you. Maya smiled. She typed back, "I just wanted a seat, Dad, but I'll take the win." A flight attendant walked over. A new hire, smiling and genuine, she placed a glass of sparkling lemonade on the table. "For you, Miss Sterling. And just so you know, we checked the manifest. Your seat is ready whenever you are." Maya closed her sketchbook. She looked out at the planes taking off, silver birds catching the sunlight. She had learned a valuable lesson that day, one she would carry forever. True power isn't about screaming the loudest. It's about knowing who you are, so you never have to prove it to anyone who doesn't matter. As for Elena Vans, she was just a ghost in the rearview mirror, a cautionary tale of what happens when you let pride fly higher than your paycheck. And that is how one entitled demand for a window seat led to the total destruction of a dynasty. It brings a whole new meaning to the phrase, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Elena Vance thought her husband's money made her untouchable. But she learned the hard way that in the age of the internet, character is the only currency that matters. She lost her marriage, her fortune, and her reputation all because she couldn't show basic kindness to a teenager in a hoodie. What do you think? Did the punishment fit the crime? Did Robert Vance do the right thing by leaving her? Or was he just saving his own skin? Clear's throat. And have you ever witnessed instant karma like this in real life? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Until next time, stay humble and fly.